Hey, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to be here with Khalilah Lyons. And for those that don't know me, I'm Cassandra Quinn. I am the programs chair, of the Chicago chapter of Conscious Capitalism. And I have the privilege of talking with Khalilah today because she's going to be with us next month for our author series. But before I give too much away, I'm going to toss the ball to you and let you just tell the world a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Hello to the audience that is listening. I am Khalilah Lyons. I am the founder of Answer the Moment LLC, where I specialize in culture transformation and leadership practices and in really getting to what does it mean to have a culture of empowerment? What are the practices that we need to have, the principles that we need to have, and that shows up across everything from strategic workforce planning to career planning and all the other things that really have an impact on a business from a people perspective. But the sweet spot is getting into the nuances and the subtleties that end up having significance in those things that we typically overlook and can cause, as I like to say, unlawful entry into our clarity. So that's one thing. But then I'm also an author, which is why we're here today to talk about prioritize your purpose every day, speaking, coaching, and all of that is rooted in the name of my company, which I'm making sure I spelled it correctly, Answer the Moment, and in how we answer our moments, because I truly believe, and I'll talk about this later, there's a theory of, for me, every moment does matter and how that aligns to a greater collective purpose that is bigger than us, but also for us. So that's what I bring into coaching, speaking, strategizing, partnering, all that good stuff. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Yes. And I think like we were chatting about this a little earlier today before we went live, but our shared desire for all of that in the world and the impact that has in the world, I think is why, even though we are leading our own companies with me, I am the founder and CEO of Quinnovate, and you with Answer the Moment. You're also a multi-founder, I recognize that we haven't even touched on that part yet. But why it still matters to us to be coming to have these kinds of conversations and being engaged with an organization like Conscious Capitalism. And we're so honored to have you, as our author series guest speaker in February.
Yes.
Yeah. And now, before we jump into talking more about that and about your book and you being a part of that author series, I also just want to let any viewers who are with us now or who are catching the replay know that you absolutely can go sign up and join us for Khalilah's event in Chicago, February 7th. And that is going to be a senior leadership breakfast. The location is still TBD, but we should have that information in the coming days. And though registration is live, but we also have a couple of events before then. We do have an event on this Thursday with another tremendous speaker who is not a part of our author series, but instead of our meet and greet, and that is Claudia Freed. And that's an evening event this Friday at the Reveler from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. So just if you want to get involved sooner than February 7th, there's a way to do that. And I just want to make sure I shared that with the audience. And if you're joining us now or catch the replay, drop a comment, let us know you're here. We love to know who is a part of the conversation. And then also feel free to ask questions, whether we're able to see them during the conversation right now or coming back to that after the fact. So that is all my housekeeping things that I want to make sure that I didn't forget to say. So thank you for indulging me in that. Now, what we're here to do, which is talk about your book. You already shared the name. Can you share it with us one more time so that we can hear what is it again?
Absolutely. I'm just going to hold it up. I don't know how easy it is to see here, but this is Prioritize Your Purpose Every Day. It's presented by my organization. I actually have a revised and updated version out now for anyone that has purchased it in the past. And then again, this is about, what are those principles and practices that we can take into our everyday? Because I'm very big on what can you do every day? What can you do right now to ensure that the experience that you are having on a day-to-day basis, how you're answering your moments and what that means for the moments of others with you, that's being prioritized, because that ultimately is going to impact the outcomes. So let's make sure we're prioritizing the right things to get the outcomes that we want. And so much of that starts in ensuring everything's aligned with your purpose. So that's why this is here. And this is rooted in 20 plus years of working across industries, different leaders, different employees, my own personal life, and now putting it in a way where it's easy for people to take it in.
And I think that leads us right into what I wanted to ask you first. So your book challenges us to move from achievement to being.
Yes.
What sparked this shift in your own leadership journey?
It was an incredible spark. I would say a blow up, not even a spark. I think about that word, a definite blow up, a big bump. And it came during a season of unraveling for me, where everything I thought that defined me, that I was very proud of, this external validation, my title, all the achievements that I had, my marriage, a life that brought, again, this external validation that showed up as applause and accolades, all of it started to be stripped away, right? This is in 2019. And as these things are being stripped away based on different circumstances, what remained was this really raw and undeniable truth of who I actually am beneath the accolades. And we all have this raw, undeniable truth. We just sometimes can hide it very easily under our productivity. So it was a very humbling and transformative experience that taught me, what does it mean to just surrender to the moment, not try to control it anymore, let it go, and not mask my vulnerability with a lot of productivity, with a lot of activity, with a lot of, again, accolades and applause. What does it mean now? So this season, it hit me really hard. I call it my fertilization season. And it got me from chasing the next achievement, right? And thinking, as these different things are falling apart, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? To me, God bringing me to these very deeper questions of who am I? And who am I going to be without these external markers in my life? What truly matters in this moment? And who am I becoming? What do I believe? And so with my leadership journey, it really got me shifting from doing what needs to be done as a leader and what it means to be an experience over doing and achieving. That was incredibly pivotal for me, and getting to, as a leader, and I say empowerment leader, like I see myself as an empowerment leader, empowerment coach, not so much providing answers or seeking these right answers, but what does it mean for myself and others around me to create space to answer whatever this moment is before us. Not getting caught in, one of my B-list principles is your rigid expectations can block your fluid evolution. So how do we start letting go of these rigid expectations and being empowered to evolve in what the moment is calling for us?
I love it. And I love how naturally your work and your purpose overlap with the conscious capitalism principles. You've just naturally, I think, touched on at least 3 of the 4. So your book about like what is our purpose and prioritizing our purpose and recognizing that is our guiding light.
Yes.
Conscious leadership is one of our other pillars, and how are we showing up in those ways and in those spaces? Who are we being? Not just what are we doing as leaders. In fact, it's
100%.
Yeah. More about who we're being. And then conscious culture. I think you touched on that way at the beginning when you were introducing yourself, and how important it is that we're creating these cultures that are nurturing not just us individually, but the communities and the teams that we're leading. So I just wanted to just highlight that, because how naturally it's just flowing in the conversation.
I love it. Yeah.
And I know earlier. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I love that so much. And I think the more, and we're just at a time now too, where I think the collective experience is going to be so important, and we're going to have to be intentional about how radically different we have to move. Like intentionality, being conscious is a call to action we're not really going to be able to ignore as things shift, no matter where you are on the playing fields, or sometimes when they feel like a battlefield, we are going to have to be conscious of our things. And with the A-list, and I don't think I've gotten deep yet into the A list and the B list and how that's rooted in prioritize your purpose. But I'll say as society, we are so conditioned to just have this normalized activity. And I've talked a lot about what this means for us to call back to what we've normalized and in getting intentional about what's actually natural for us as human beings and how we connect. And that is going to be important in the workplace too, because it's never just one thing. I'm not at work and then I'm at home, and those are two different things. It all comes together.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like you mentioned earlier, you've been doing this work for 20 plus years, and you've seen this evolve over time. And really, actually, a lot of this, the heart of it's just been true, and people are awakening to a lot of that truth, right? But you've been partnering with organizations like General Mills and YMCA Chicago and Ronald McDonald House Charities and all kinds of really recognizable organizations. And I'm curious, over those 20 years, what surprising insights emerged about how doing was actually limiting the leader's potential? So this energy of doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things, because I'll say it's never just one thing. But one that came top of mind as I was thinking about this, a recurring insight is just how deeply entrenched, and this is across nonprofits, corporate, small business, startups, leaders are entrenched in this narrative of doing as a measure of their worth, right? They have the title, they have these different privileges, but still what I'm doing is defining my worth. And there's always going to be so much more to do. So you never kind of rest in who you're being and who you're becoming. And this external validation comes to a term I talk about in my book. It leads us to achievement exhaustion, right? Like we're being exhausted versus leaning into our internal value. So validation versus value, so that we can experience everyday breakthrough, because there is something to experience as far as a breakthrough every day. We have limitless significance. And if we put that in a box of our achievements, we can stifle very quickly what that looks like and what is the possibility in every decision that we have, in every interaction, in every circumstance. What is the possibility even in our expectations? And sometimes I replace that E with ego, but the constant drive for results often comes in what I see with leaders. And when I'm having conversations with them, it comes at the expense of their reflection, because they're not pausing to reflect. And pausing is actually a very powerful activity that we should do if we are thinking about activity. It comes at the expense of being genuine and relevant to the moment and connection with others, but also the connection that we have with ourselves, with our purpose, going back to aligning and prioritizing with our purpose. So I see leaders in many different ways stifling their own potential because they're staying in this A-list box, and it comes through then and trickles down to stifling the potential of their teams, because we're getting to outcomes and only focusing on that, our outputs, and not focusing on what's the experience, what's the outcome, and we're getting to performance, which is important, but not purpose. And as I say this, I want to be clear. I'm not saying these A-list things don't matter. Of course, our achievements matter. Yes, we all love accolades and applause, but it's just shifting how we prioritize them and how one then leads to the other to really get the full potential and possibilities out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's what really excited me when I found out that you were coming to share with us and we get to be with you in person. For those who haven't been to one of our senior leadership breakfasts, it tends to be a pretty intimate, hands-on time. And I didn't say this to you earlier, Khalilah, when we were chatting and prepping before we came on live, but I think that people don't sometimes appreciate the fact that they have these rare moments to have access to leaders like you in those rare moments, where I think that usually it's safe for your clients. It's safe for those who are already deeply doing the work and investing with you. So this is a rare opportunity and treat that we get to have next month with you.
I love it. And I love one of the things, and that's why I always have someone in the room, like, keep me on time. because as you're asking questions, and especially just 20 plus years of working with leaders and being in a position where I needed to respond to the moment, answer the moment, as you ask questions and have different things, let's discuss it. And then we're with others so we can get other insights outside of my own, because all of our experiences matter. So I'm really excited to have this experience with you all in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I think that you highlighted another really important reason why we have these kinds of events. It's not just about bringing in amazing speakers like yourself who can give us these kinds of tools and insights and practical ways to apply these things that are really important to us on a theoretical level, but it's being in a room full of people that care about that, who have insights. Absolutely. And who can contribute to our collective growth and collective wisdom. And so I'm so excited to lean into your wisdom, but I know how special it is to just be in a room full of that collective wisdom too. So I'm curious, what inspired you to say yes, though, when we invited you to bring the B-List framework to this breakfast that we've been chatting about that's happening on February 7th. What inspired you to say yes to joining us, and what unique experience can leaders expect when working with these concepts in person rather than just leaning into the conversation we're having right now?
I'm so excited. It was an easy yes. It truly was, because your organization, as we've already touched on in just my opening, you embody everything that the B-List Living framework stands for, that my organization as Answer the Moment, because it's the only moment that you can answer. So how are you conscious in that moment stands for, right? My work is anchored in it, my book, my coaching approach, my overall lifestyle, right? What does it mean to create intentional spaces, as we just said, for leaders to pause, reflect, and engage with their purpose? A lot of times we say what our purpose is, but what does it mean? And I have some practices in my book about that, to actually engage and prioritize your purpose. And so when we get together, this isn't going to be about you getting this framework and starting to add more to your plate. And obviously it's not about striving for perfection, which a lot of times that comes for us as leaders, but grounding yourself in truly what matters, and not just being on the journey, but embracing every single moment of that journey and doing it with courage, doing it with clarity, and doing it with a sense of conviction. So this felt aligned with my personal mission of what it means to work with leaders and connect with what I like to call everyday significance. Because sometimes we feel like once we get this achievement, again, now we're significant. But again, everyday significance, and empower them to answer their moments, not just with their careers, but what does this mean for your personal life too, right? The B-List framework is something that you take wherever, and how you think about how you're going to breathe more, evolve more. What are the bumps that you need to have in a better appreciation of as far as what life is doing for you, and rethinking. And I've heard this in different conversations with leaders, even just rethinking. I'm always focused on the next promotion, but now I'm thinking about what does it mean to expand my purpose. I'll never forget when I had a top executive say how he needs to breathe more, and not just what that means for his family, but what it means to breathe and be more at work as well. So we're not going to talk about strategies or achievements. That's not what I'm looking to do. It's going to be a chance to explore the depth of the unique and significant leadership that we have, how we're embracing different truths that we face in every moment, and go through, I hope we have enough time for this, but go through different practices that relate to each bump. So exploring what disruptions actually mean for you, and reimagining that, reflecting on how you move through life and you navigate your ups and downs, how you rethink what it is you actually need to do for yourself. Because sometimes if you think of boosts, it might be another training, but getting real nuanced in what that means for your purpose, reimagining your foundational beliefs of what it means to be a leader, and just the essential practice of being present and self-acceptance, and the acceptance of others, right? What are those expectations that we need to challenge in every moment? So again, you get the full possibility of every moment. So a lot of tools and insights to help navigate, again, not just at work as leaders, but how we're leading in purpose in every moment that we have. The
Yeah.
whole thing. I'm always holistic with my approach.
Absolutely. And I love that. I think that that is very in alignment with the work that you and I both do in our respective businesses. And also, I love when my business worlds start to overlap, something that we haven't shared with those who might be with us right now or catching the replay is that Khalilah and I, our worlds are not just colliding over here in conscious capitalism, but we actually Khalilah is a fellow Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Alumni Ambassador. We both went through that program. What cohort were you? Do you remember?
Oh my goodness, 36.
Okay.
Yes, cohort 36. I don't know why 35 is raining, but it's cohort 36. Yes.
Amazing. And
December 15th, 2024 is when we all graduated.
Amazing. And I was cohort 23, so it was a pre-pandemic cohort, so definitely a different world. But what I love about and appreciated about how that program that we both experienced, they dedicate a whole module actually to identifying and articulating purpose, mission, which I just really loved. And that was something that I had already done, and it was nice to be able to revisit. But it actually surprised me how many of my fellow cohort members hadn't done the work to specifically articulate and identify, even if it was a felt something inside of them, the difference of being able to articulate that and communicate that out to the world. And of course, that aligns perfectly with our conscious capitalism pillar of higher purpose. And I know, obviously, this overlaps with your work. So, how does your B list framework shift from doing to being and helping leaders connect more authentically with their organization's higher purpose, not just their personal purpose, but the organizational higher purpose?
I'll say, even as you talk about the experience with Goldman Sachs, it just reiterates how we stay focused and start with the A list versus our B list. And you have to start with that why, which gets to the beliefs on the B list, because that is going to have a very powerful ripple effect in everything else that you do. If you don't know your why, then you're not hiring the right people, right? How you onboard them, the communication, there's just so many different dynamics. So at its core, the framework recognizes that empowerment leadership, again, begins with who we are, what is our why, how we're constantly prioritizing that and bringing that into every conversation that we have, whether it's with our employees, or if it's with our stakeholders, if it's with the communities that we connect with and that we serve. And what that means in every moment that we're answering. And again, what does that mean for the moments of the people that we're connecting with? Because that intersection is powerful too. And we have to be conscious of what that means. So a state of being that flows from clarity of your why, being authentic at all times and confident in that authenticity with your why, and not just leaving a legacy within the organization of achievements, but a legacy in experience. We underestimate, and there's so many statistics and data, if you need the numbers, to show the experience that people have impacts their engagement and therefore their performance. And as Maya Angelou, one of my favorite poets, says, people will remember how you made them feel. I'm paraphrasing, so somebody's probably quoting like it's not exactly that, but people will remember how you made them feel over what you did, right? And what you leave behind. So having that legacy of experience. So an organization's higher purpose is best expressed when leaders are embodying their own purpose and giving permission for everyone around them to breathe and be in their purpose too. And then what does that mean for the organization breathing and being, and how it's serving the community that it's actually there for? So getting back to empowerment, getting back to significance and what that means for, again, strong business outcomes, but those outcomes are a reflection of the purpose and why we're here as an organization. So please, if you haven't sat to really think about what your why is, whether it's your own organization or just the organization that you're supporting, get at that, because who you are being and your why is going to trickle through how you actually do things and what that means and how that impacts how others are doing. and how they are doing, right? Like, how are you doing? How are you doing what you're, I'm like, I had two things as I was saying that in my head. So yes, not just articulating your purpose either, right? I asked you to sit and maybe think about it if you haven't, but not articulating it. But then what are the practices on a day-to-day that are going to show that you're honoring your purpose? I have a question that I ask people. Have you talked to your purpose lately? And what does that conversation look like? So I challenge everyone that's listening. Have you talked to your purpose lately?
Ooh, and you know what? That might have just like pre-answered a question I was going to ask you, which was because I know one of the things I love about the fact that everyone who's coming to the event is going to get access and take home a copy of your book, is that you were really intentional about it being full of powerful daily practices.
Yes.
And it being practical, not theoretical.
Yes.
And that they have really been helping transform leaders in major organizations. So it sounded like I was going to ask you if you could give us a glimpse at one of those practices, knowing that at our event, our attendees are going to have an opportunity to experience it more fully. But it sounds like that might have been the glimpse, right?
That was the glimpse. You know, when I saw this question, I was like, if I still have people that are on the A list, which most of us are, if I give you the practice, you might try to do it in advance. And I don't want you to think about it in advance, but I will share this. You know, when I'm working with teams, leaders, whether it's from a strategist perspective or a coaching perspective, one of the, I'll say, impactful perspective prompts that I give them is the concept of unraveling. And what if we let it all unravel? And what if we embrace seeing now what it looks like to fall apart and seeing now what it looks like to have everything on the table and have some clarity in these deeper truths that have just been uncovered. And again, going back to the control that we can try to have as leaders and making sure this is what we need to achieve. What if we, in the name of a bump from the B list, let this bump happen, appreciate it, let it all unravel, and start to ask, well, what is this moment that I have to answer? What is it revealing to me? What truth am I being invited to see? And now, how do I act? What do I do? Because a lot of times we're still trying to do based on this original idea. But what if we let it all unravel and allow some innovation and get curious, which I always say is a superpower, and embrace the unraveling.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And I'm excited because even those who may not be able to join us live for the event, your book is available online. Yes. I believe is the only place for people to access that is your website. Is that accurate?
Right now, yes, that is accurate.
I just want to make sure I wasn't misleading people.
No, you are, but you'll find this little store and it will be personally shipped from me. That's where we are today. But I am working to get it broader. So if you follow me on LinkedIn or any of my other social media, you will know once it's available on other platforms.
That's amazing. And right now at the bottom of the screen, I added your website, iamkhalilah.com. And when this is over, I'll hop onto the platforms where we're streaming right now and drop a direct link to your book page, but it was quite long to put on the screen. So if you iamkhalilah.com, then you're going to be able to easily navigate to the book and buy the book directly if you're not able to join us on February 7th. If you are, though, joining us, you're going to get to experience it firsthand and take home a signed copy, which I always think is lovely and special. And that's included in the registration for coming to the event. And this event is actually open to the public. So this is not a partner-only event. Even if you're not a partner, which is the new language that we have shifted to in conscious capitalism, rather than saying members, because we are a movement. We are not just an organization, and we are drawing people as partners and asking them to actively be participating in this movement. But the good news is this event is actually open. And so guests and partners alike are welcome to join us for that event. I'm curious though, if people, I know you mentioned LinkedIn.
Yes.
Where should, outside obviously the event and LinkedIn, is there any place else that people should be aware of to connect with you directly or learn more about your work?
I would say if you want to see me as the whole human being that I am, because again, we have many parts of our identity, and I'm unapologetic about all of them. You can definitely follow me on Instagram or Facebook as well to see a lot of the other contributors to how I stand in my beliefs and how I breathe and be. And, you know, I might share some bumps that I'm experiencing along the way and how I'm bouncing day to day. But yes, those are the other two platforms right now. And again, if you do join those, as well as LinkedIn, you'll see, because there are plans to release other things later this year where we can have different conversations about how to answer the moment, how to understand what the moment is, you know, how to identify the right moment, because sometimes we're not answering the right moment either, and how to have practices around that. So a lot of great conversations to come. And again, I'm super excited to get into these compelling exercises with the leaders on February 7th.
Yeah, and I know, as you alluded to a few times in conversation, this is so much bigger than one conversation can contain,
Yes.
or one event can contain. Part of the reason why we're having this conversation today, part of the reason that we've already organized to have you do a virtual deepening the conversation. So if folks are with us in person, or they're not able to join us in person because the date doesn't work, or they're too far away from Chicago and they still want to be able to have some of that deep hands-on experience, we're going to be able to do that virtually later in the month in February. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And it sounds like you have some of your own personal things that will be released that we should be following along to be able to continue those kinds of conversations with you too.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to tease and like tell us a little bit more about, or is it still under wraps about what might be coming out?
I'll just say, you know, I call myself like a story harvester. Not so much a storyteller, but how do I harvest stories from others? And it's something very special I get to do with an organization, International Women's Forum, getting at Behind Her Bio. And so what does it mean to understand who these incredible women are outside of what we find on LinkedIn? But it also gets at our different moments, right? So I will say it's going to be different conversations that get at the different type of moments that we have in our day. And while we'll hear distinct narratives and distinct experiences, there we will find this common thread that again connects us to this collective purpose that is bigger than us and that is for us. So having conversations that show our difference but really amplify our sameness and what that means for empowering us in every moment that we have.
I love it. I am going to let folks know they can go to consciouscapitalismchicago.org. Events and programs is where we're going to see both an opportunity to register for the event that we've been talking about today with Khalilah on February 7th. We also have a couple of events happening before then. One is in person this week on Thursday evening with Claudia Freed. And then we have a virtual workshop between that event and being able to be with you in person. Yeah. And also, that's just the page to keep your eye on as we are adding more events and adding that virtual event with Khalilah that's not yet live. So inviting our watchers, our listeners to keep an eye on that page. And then I know we've been chatting for a while. And like we said, no conversation is going to contain everything that we could possibly want to cover.
I'm looking at the time like, oh my goodness.
I know. I have one last question for you if you have the space for it.
Yes.
And that is, what is the most profound transformation you've witnessed when a leader embraces the power of being?
You know, when I saw this, I was like, is there one that's more profound than the other? Because it definitely looks different. But if I try to think of a common thread, and it's going to seem so simple, but again, it's these subtleties or these seemingly simple things that have such significant impact. It's when leaders start to recognize through our work together that they no longer have to strive to be something that they're not, and meeting expectations of society and embracing and expressing who they truly are, and doing that in a very new way. And I'll say that for my own personal journey in thinking and seeing different archetypes of leadership, and I don't fit that archetype, I feel like, in how I look and how I speak and how I communicate. You know, I tell people a lot, like as I'm speaking, I'm like seeing words come. So I don't even always make the eye contact that we're supposed to make. So once you can embrace that and really be vulnerable with what that means, it allows you to be relevant to the moment. And now you're transforming not just yourself as a leader, but the entire organization by bringing your true gift to the table. So it's going back to that unraveling. What if I let my expectations of a leader completely unravel? What does that mean as I start to take these pieces and rebuild in my truth, with intention and with a focus on the influence that I'm having because I'm leading from my purpose? And so much of that, I'll say, as far as a specific practice, is part of us getting leaders to ask more questions than just providing answers. And I think about one leader where I was giving her different questions to ask in meetings versus always responding to her people right away. And as she asked them more questions and invited them into the conversation, she started to see their gifts, their talents. They were coming now more prepared to talk. And it was a lot of reshifting of people moving to different positions and doing different type of work, because now she's exploring and expanding the conversation. But that came from her letting go of her notion of, as a leader, I'm supposed to have an answer and we have to have a solution in this moment because you brought it up. But what is the possibility here? Mm-hmm. So that letting go of expectations of who they've seen themselves, and a lot of times it's expectations they put on themselves. It comes from experience and exposure, but letting that unravel and starting to enjoy the journey of giving themselves boosts and evolving their beliefs and how they breathe and be has been one of the most powerful things that I've seen.
I love it. And I'm so grateful that I had a mentor a few years ago who had instilled this idea of shifting from doing to being. And it's scary because I think that there's a subset of people who are trying to layer on this idea of what a leader is. Some people, they've just bought into that. Some of us always knew, like, I think that like, I don't fit that mold, and yet I feel like I have to. And so there was always for me this dissonance and feeling like I had to layer on or hide or compartmentalize. And the more I let that go and the more I shed those layers, it surprised me. It can be scary to be vulnerable and show up as your whole self and be like, yeah, I'm the business leader who has the fairy blue hair and flits about. And I used to, like, I didn't do this, like even just something as simple as having my hair the color and the style that I wanted it and feeling
big hair. Yes, all that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or feeling like I could bring my whole vulnerable heart to work.
Yes.
Even when I'm the leader, that can be not only valuable, but necessary. And I had felt like that was somehow, even though that's always who I've known I've been, something wrong with my leadership instead of exactly
100%.
Exactly. And then once I was like, oh, it's so much easier to just be myself. And
and then on the other side, you can achieve more. Because if I can add really quickly for the A-listers that are like, this still feels really soft. A lot of this gets at how you're, and I'm going to use some A-list words, I feel like, but supercharging your clarity and your focus as you do this. And it's unlocking that next level creativity that you still may be trying to achieve for, and how it's elevating your decision making and in allowing you to reclaim that edge of performance that's there, right? But it's being stifled because you're still staying in this box. So it's redefining success in a way that matters, but it is not in any way, shape, or form replacing ambition in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
It's evolving your ambition, really.
Yes. And I think that is a beautiful note to land our conversation on. And so thank you so much for your time today, Khalilah. I am geeked out that we get to spend some more time together in the coming weeks, and being able to bring more people into the conversation and actively engaging them in the ways that we got to today. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great experience.
I'm so glad. Likewise. All right, everyone. We'll see you all later.